Hello, second graders. This is Mrs. Gilmore, and we are going to be working on Unit 1, Lesson 14 today. And what we're going to be learning is how to use word problems that compare two or more things. Now, the last couple of lessons we've had word problems that help us put together and take apart problems. But this lesson today is going to be how to compare compare two different things in a word problem. So the first thing I want you to look is the following question, and I want us to read this word problem together. Jane and Ernie have some apples. I'm going to underline the word some. I don't know how many, but I know it's a certain amount. Jane has 6 apples. I'm going to underline 6 apples. That sounds important. And Ernie has 9 apples. So I know Ernie has 9. I'm going to underline 9 apples. My question I'm asking is who has more apples and how many more? So this actually has a two-part question. The first thing we need to figure out is who has more. Is it going to be Jane or is it going to be Ernie? And then we need to figure out how many more that person has, the person with more apples. So here's the way we're going to figure it out. I want you to draw this drawing in your math notebook. It's going to look like this. You have Jane up at the top here, and she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 apples. Notice I put my apples in a group of 5 with an extra 1. And then Ernie has 9 apples, so I put a group of 5 and an extra 4 to make my 9. So when we want to try and compare these two amounts, we need to figure out how can I line these apples up to match them up and see which one has more. So I'm going to take my apples and I'm going to draw a line from my top apple to my bottom apple. And I'm going to match up my apples here. And then, depending on when I run out of apples to match up, that should tell me who still has apples is the person who has more. So I've got 1 apple and 1 apple, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5, 6 and 6, and now I've run out of things that I can connect my apples to. I got to 6 apples, which is how much Jane has, and then I ran out of things to connect to, which means if I'm missing apples in Jane's row up here, that means Ernie still has 1, 2, 3 apples left, which means Ernie has 3 more here than Jane does. That tells us that Ernie has more. And the question also asked us, if we look back at the question, it tells us how many more. And if you look, you can see Ernie has 3 more apples at the end here than Jane does. So we can say 3 more, or we can say it the opposite way, and we can say Jane has 3 less than Ernie. So we can say Ernie has 3 more, or Jane has 3 less. The other way we can show this problem is by using something called comparison bars. These comparison bars show how much Ernie has with a bigger bar. Ernie's is the largest amount, so I'm going to put the largest amount on top, and I'm going to make one long bar for Ernie, and Ernie has 9 apples, so I'm going to put 9 in Ernie's bar, and then Jane is below him because she has the smaller amount. I'm going to put Jane here with 6 below, and then next to the 6, I'm going to put an oval. And that oval is going to go from the end of my 6 for Jane to the end of my 9 for Ernie. And it's going to make an oval between those two amounts. Then I'm going to put a question mark in my oval that's going to say, well, this is the amount that's different between Jane and Ernie. And I'm trying to figure out how much would go in this question mark oval. How many more apples does Ernie have than Jane? Well, the way I can do this is I can take my 9 for Ernie, I can subtract my 6 for Jane, and that should tell me how much is left in my oval that is the amount more that Ernie has or the amount less that Jane has. And 9 minus 6 is 3. So that can tell me Ernie has 3 more, or Jane has 3 less. Okay, now I want you to turn in your student activity book to page 39. We're going to try some of these comparison problems. Let's look at number 1 in your student activity book. And the directions say, make a matching drawing. That means you can use the circles or you can use comparison bars. And then you're going to write an equation and solve the problem. So let's look at number 1 and read number 1 together. It says, Ben has 11 library books. I'm going to underline 11 library books. That sounds important. If Ben returns 4 books, now I'm going to circle the word returns because returns is giving me a clue. That means he's giving something back. And I'm going to underline the word 4 books because that's also important. If Ben returns 4 books, he will have as many library books as Dale. I'm going to underline that sentence because that's telling me my comparison. He has the same amount as Dale if he returns 4 of his books. And then the question asks us, how many library books does Dale have? So if Ben has 11 library books, and Ben has 11 library books, and then he returns 4 of them, but now he has the same amount as Dale, we need to figure out how can we find out how many Dale has. So I'm going to start with Ben, and I'm going to put this in my comparison bars. And I have Ben has 11 library books, so I'm going to put 11 library books for my comparison bar. I'm going to put 11 in my bar. And then Dale has less. We know he has less because Ben has to return books to have the same amount as Dale. So Dale has less. And all we know is Ben has to return 4 books to get to the amount that Dale has. So instead, I'm actually going to use my circles for this. I think that's going to help me a little bit better than my comparison bars. So Ben has 11. I'm going to draw 11 circles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my group of 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's another group of 5 and 11. So Ben's up here. And Dale, I'm going to have to take 4 away from what Ben has. Remember, he returns 4 of his books. So I'm going to cross out 1, 2, 3, 4. And the amount that Dale has then should be the same amount as Ben has if he returns 4 of his books. So I'm going to draw in circles for Dale's books. Now, I'm going to use my line up. I'm going to line up my circles with my lines like I did in my earlier problem to make sure that I have the same amount of Ben and Dale. So I'm going to line them up. I've got 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5, 6 and 6, 7 and 7. So this tells me that Dale has 7 library books because Ben now has 7, and that's after he returned 4, and he started with 11. So I'm going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books. And remember, your label should be the word that they use in your question. How many library books? So my label should be books. 7 books. I want you to try number 2, number 3, and number 4 on this page. And remember, you need to draw your comparison bars or your matching drawing. Then you need to write an equation. Oh, Mrs. Gilmer forgot her equation up at the top here on number 1. Our equation should be Ben's 11 books minus the 4 books that he returns equals Dale's amount of books. And I'm going to put D for Dale's amount, and I'm going to put B for Ben up above his 11 books. So make sure you include your equation. Don't forget like Mrs. Gilmore did. Write an equation, draw a drawing, and then solve the problem for number 2, 3, and 4. Then you're going to go on to page 40 in your student activity book, and you're going to be doing the same thing here where you're going to be comparing 2 things in your problems, and the same directions are true for these problems on page 40. You're going to be making a drawing or using comparison bars. Then you're going to be writing an equation and solving the problem. So for number 5, we have Helena has 8 toys. I'm going to underline 8 toys. That's important. If she gets 3 more toys, she will have as many toys as Matt. And I'm going to underline as many toys as Matt. That tells me that at the end of this problem, they're going to have the same amount. but it's after she gets 3 more toys. Helena gets 3 more toys. Then the question asks us, how many toys does Matt have? So I'm going to start with Helena's 8 toys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then another group of 6, 7, 8. Now, the question says she gets 3 more toys, so we have to add 3 more to the group that she has already. I'm going to make this a little smaller. So I need to add 3 more toys. Here's 1, 2, and that's another group of 5. And then 1 more would make 3 more toys that she gets. I'm going to put Matt down below. And it says at the end of this problem, after she gets 3 more toys, she should have the same amount as Matt does. So we're going to put Matt's toys on here now and make sure that they line up with Helena's toys. Then I'm going to use my lines to compare my circles. 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11. So that means Matt has 11 toys, and the way we got this problem, or the way we got this answer, was with the equation Helena has 8 toys plus 3 more toys gives her the amount that Matt has, which ended up being 11 toys. Now don't forget, your question says how many toys, so we're going to use toys as our label. Go ahead and finish number 6 and number 7 using your drawings and your equations, and then adding and subtracting practices at the bottom of this page. Then remember to check your student activity book pages with Mrs. Gilmore before going on.